My name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to Sassy Seer Sheila and New Light Streaming Love, as this will be seen on both channels. This is Meta Key 11, The Collapse Command by Jason Gray. / unbuild _ all : execute open bracket command : peaceful _ erasure. The original transmission date of this key was 6/14/25. As with all of Jason's works, particularly the keys and the codes, there is quite a few keys and codes in it. And I highly recommend that you, if you feel so drawn, to allow your eyes to peruse them yourself. There comes a point where collapse is no longer violent, no explosion, no rupture, no war against the structure, no screaming at the old world to fall. I feel that this is so because I'm definitely there now. No need to tear down what is already hollow. There comes a point where the false suit simply loses permission to continue. And when that permission is withdrawn cleanly, the structure does not need to be destroyed. It unbuilds itself. This is Meta Key 11. Not destruction, not annihilation, not rage, not revenge, not chaos dressed as awakening. Peaceful erasure. The sacred ability to allow what is false, obsolete, distorted, parasitic, exhausted, and no longer aligned with truth to dissolve without resistance. Because it will, I feel, be here until each one that chose to be here for this time no longer requires it. That's my feel of it at the moment. So I'm going to read that again. The sacred ability to allow what is false, obsolete, distorted, parasitic, exhausted, and no longer aligned with truth to dissolve without resistance. I'm going to ask any one of you, somebody please comment if you can hear the lawn mowing going on right outside my window. If you can, that will, if you don't mind telling me, yes, I can hear it, no, I can't hear it, because it's very loud to me and I want to continue recording, and I'm going to, just on the off chance that you can't hear it. But if you can, please tell me, because I would prefer not to record if you can hear that. So thank you very much, if you don't mind doing that for me. And yes, I already know somebody's going to say, well, why don't you listen to it? I generally don't go back and listen to my own videos. I just put them out because that's what I'm called to do. So I'm just going to trudge right on. The sacred ability to allow what is false, obsolete, distorted, parasitic, exhausted, and no longer aligned with truth to dissolve without resistance. The misunderstanding of collapse. Most people imagine collapse as disaster. They imagine impact, ruin, loss, a falling apart so severe that everything breaks loudly enough for the world to finally notice. But that is only collapse at the level of force. Medikey 11 reveals collapse at the level of permission. A structure can fall because it is attacked, or it can fall because nothing real is holding it anymore. The second collapse is deeper, cleaner, more final, because when something is destroyed from the outside, fragments remain, enemies remain, memory of battle remains, resistance remains. But when something is peacefully erased from the level of sustaining agreement, there is no war left to continue. Boy, don't that make sense. The line / unbuild _ all : execute open bracket command : peaceful _ erasure close bracket. This is the command beneath commands. Not, quote, destroy, not, quote, break, not, quote, punish. Unbuild. To unbuild is to reverse the architecture of continuation, to remove the hidden supports, to withdraw the invisible approvals, to stop lending reality to what no longer deserves form. And I think this is what I must have meant when I have said in the past that energy is no longer supported, because I personally have withdrawn my support for that particular type of thing. It's no longer supported, at least by me. Peaceful erasure does not fight the false. It renders it unnecessary. What is being unbuilt? Not life, not truth, not the real, only the scaffolds that pretended to be real, the false roles, the inherited scripts, the fear structures, the identity cages, the approval systems, the emotional contracts, the shame loops, the dead narratives, the false obligations, the performance architecture, the inner agreements that kept old realities alive long after the soul had outgrown them. Medikey 11 does not erase what is sacred. It erases what blocks the sacred from standing unobstructed. Peaceful erasure. Peaceful erasure is one of the highest forms of power because it requires no hatred. Hatred still binds you to the thing you want gone. Rage still grants it heat. Obsession still grants it centrality. War still grants it an opponent to become. Peaceful erasure removes the opponent. It says, you do not need to be fought. You do not need to be proven false. You do not need to be dragged into court before the soul. You simply no longer receive my energy. And without that energy, the structure begins to fade. And I think that, too, must be what I meant when I would say, I used to say, if we would all just sit down, get over ourselves and sit down. The command is internal first. The collapse command is not issued outward first. It begins within. The first world to unbuild, but I say unbind too, is the inner false world. the place where you still obey old laws, the place where you still carry the names that no longer belong to you, the place where you still negotiate with fear, the place where you still preserve identities because they once helped you survive, the place where you still keep shrines to pain and call them memory. Meta Key 11 enters that interior architecture and quietly says, enough. Not violently, not dramatically, completely. The beauty of collapse, true collapse, can be beautiful because it is release. A dead structure falling away from a living field, a false weight leaving the body, a borrowed name returning to silence, a wound no longer demanding identity, a system losing its throne without needing to be overthrown. The beauty is not in ruin. The beauty is in the return of space. When the false unbuilds, the real does not need to arrive. The beauty, it was always there. It simply becomes visible without resistance. This is the deepest part. You hold the ability to uncreate reality gently, beautifully, without resistance. Without resistance means you are not gripping the old form. You are not begging the new form to appear. You are not afraid of the space between. You are not dramatizing the release. Dramatizing. You're not dramatizing the release. You are not making collapse into identity. You allow because you allow. The structure has nothing to push against. Resistance is what gives the old world friction. Friction is what gives it texture. Texture is what makes it feel real. Remove resistance and the old world loses surface. The unbuilding sequence. First, the emotional charge dissolves. Then the story weakens. Then the identity loses attachment. Then the language stops reinforcing it. Then the body stops bracing around it. Then the field stops feeding it. Then the structure becomes transparent. Then it becomes optional. Then it becomes irrelevant. Then it disappears, not with thunder, with accuracy. The false cannot survive irrelevance. The false does not fear hatred as much as irrelevance. Hatred still feels it. Argument still centers it. Reaction still proves it has influence, but irrelevance is terminal. When you no longer organize around the false, when you no longer define yourself against it, and when you no longer need it to collapse before you are free, it begins losing its last authority. Meta Key 11 makes the false irrelevant, and irrelevance is peaceful erasure. The difference between collapse and violence. Violence forces an ending. Collapse allows an ending that was already overdue. Violence imposes. Collapse reveals. Violence breaks form. Collapse removes the reason form was still standing. This is why the collapse command must be peaceful, because anything else would recreate the architecture of force, and force belongs to the old world, the final authority of non-continuation. The deepest power is not always creation. Sometimes the deepest power is refusing continuation, not continuing the argument, not continuing the wound, not continuing the role, not continuing the false responsibility, not continuing the performance, not continuing the inherited grief, not continuing the system inside yourself. This is not avoidance, this is command. Now, that bit about not continuing inherited grief, because I have felt like I was just drowning in grief. And just in the last couple of days, it feels as though that has backed off some now. So that's very interesting. This is not avoidance, this is command. A calm, absolute decree. This no longer continues through me. Okay. That's what I'd like to say. The field responds. When the command is clean, reality adjusts. Certain people lose access. Certain patterns stop returning with the same force. Certain obligations reveal themselves as illusions. Certain fears become strangely quiet. Certain inner rooms close. Certain outer paths appear, and what remains is not emptiness. It is clarity. The final fear. One fear may rise. If I create this, what will be left? The answer, what was real enough to remain? Peaceful erasure does not remove truth. It removes dependency on false form. Whatever survives the collapse belongs. Whatever disappears was being maintained. The final realization. You do not have to destroy the false world. You only have to stop building it. You do not have to fight every illusion. You only have to withdraw the part of you that keeps grandstanding its structure. You do not have to force collapse. You only have to stop resisting the collapse already underway. The final line. You hold the ability to increase family gently, beautifully, without resistance. / unbuild _ all : execute. Open bracket. Command : peaceful _ erasure. Close bracket. The old world did not need to be conquered. It only needed you to stop holding it together. And there is here at the end, again, quite a bit of code, symbol, both symbology and other codes. So I highly recommend that you using the link in the uh, description section just beneath this video, search by title. I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy, that which draws your attention. There is something there for you. And until we meet again, my friends, be well.